Let's go. Hello, everybody. This is a Nightwing at Way of Life Esports, and this is Rift Insight Season 1, Episode 18. Everything is in full effect, actually. Yeah, so the off-season is in full effect if you're not in the 2020 World Finals. If you're not Suning or Damn One, you're not in the finals again. And you have to worry about your off season. Oh, thank you, Nick. Did you hit the stop button again? Yes, I did.
I'm hoping this is the last time we do this intro because I can't handle it again.
Did I set it for PM? Okay, it's cool. It's cool. All right, so let's see what is to talk about, because there's actually a lot to talk about. There's actually just a lot in general. There's the off season. There's the recent rumors that came out to be true. Then you also have Suning making it to the 2020 World Championship Finals. You also have Damwon clapping G2. I got most of my predictions right. I predicted that it would be an LPL versus LCK Finals. You know, a lot of people thought that G2 were going to get back to the finals.
Make that so vague.
I'm just saying, I am a genius.
3 out of 4. One of the side was LCK.
The only person that like really went crazy were like I guess the EU fans that thought they were gonna get back to the finals. Hey, I'm not saying you couldn't have, but you didn't. And I don't know, it just looked like Fnatic and G2 weren't as strong as they were last year. You know, I throw no shade at them.
Fnatic is looking stronger than last year. I actually think G2 on the other hand looks weaker.
Like, I just didn't see them as strong as they were last year. Like, to me, they just weren't as strong.
I actually want to point out, I think the versatility at which G2 actually played the pick and ban phase and a lot of other things was probably the best they've ever done. I think this is the strongest in terms of leading up to the draft, and their mindset and in like the way they play the game was probably the most meticulous and most in terms of just like actually perfect for the meta out of all of them. They just played individually skillfully worse. Maybe not Caps 100%, but like Yankos was worse, Perks was worse, Wonder was probably around the same. But the two main aspects of the team were playing substantially worse individually, and that actually just brought down the team in general. But I do want to point out the reason they look so much better in the best of 5 than I expected them to, because they almost always won the pick pick and ban, and they always 100% knew what to do with their comps.
Man, so much to start with. So there's the rumor of Nemesis getting replaced on Fnatic. Now, the tradition of Fnatic mid laners is to get replaced anyway after like 2 years. So that's not surprising to me that he would get replaced. I think he would get replaced because, like, I don't think he's actually progressed since 2019. We saw the progression in 2019, and then in 2020, people got to factor in, during the LEC 2020 summer split, he wasn't really that good. Like, I don't know where this, like, random love for him comes from. I think that's the issue with, like, league content for the players, is that fans get super, super attached to players, and it's like, you gotta judge the players off their gameplay, you know? I don't really think he played that well overall throughout the year, but at Worlds, you really saw that he was pinching his champion pool, he couldn't be flexible, all he could play was Lucian and Orianna. If you ban those, he was pretty much pinched
probably
into
Galio. His best character was Galio by the end. I think Lucian is his best mechanical. Well, yeah, but that's 3 characters. They never actually banned him out. If you ban him out, you kind of leave the rest of the characters open. Like
they threw a few bans his way because they knew if I did that,
I don't think they were like to the point where they pinched him. I just was surprised by how bad his TF was. Like, that's just actually insane. Like, he's actually just like, we see Showmaker over here, like 1v1 in Caps on TF, and then he can't even 1v1 in Caster minions. It's just actually incredible. Like, I don't know. I was a little bit disappointed with Nemesis. I saw a lot of progression, a lot of talent in terms of what he was able to bring to the table in his first year, and it really just never progressed from there. So it's just a little. It's a little bit sad.
So what ended up happening that I was really surprised is that people were just all on the Suning hype train. I was like, people called this team a dark horse and didn't even think they could even make top 4. I'm like, no, people, you're going too crazy here. This is actually a good team. The issue here is the LPL has really good teams, so they look bad by comparison to other teams. People got to factor this in. It blows my mind. So you have Suning right here. So let's say I have a tier list, right? So if there's 2 S-tier LPL teams, and there's Suning as an A tier, that doesn't mean Suning is worse than everybody else in the other regions because they can't beat, like, IG or top esports. Like that's just how the LPL is. It's just really it's
I
not
do
top
want to
heavy.
point out.
It's just the best teams just stand out.
I want to point out they actually if Suning had came in to Worlds on the form that they were in during the LPL, I feel like they might not have got out of groups. They did not know how to perform at World. I mean, in the LPL, a lot of their problems are actually have been fixed during Worlds. As so, it's like if we look at the laning phase and kind of just the overall play of Huang Fong and Sword Art, they actually were a lot worse in the LPL. I think they during this World they somehow worked out some kinks or something because like Sword Art might be one of the best supports at the entire World's like tournament. We're seeing that. We're seeing Huang Fong playing absolutely incredible.
What? Sword Art?
Sword Art
purposely almost ran it down in game.
Are you trying
4?
to tell me that he has not been one of the best supports at this entire tournament? Because I want to agree with that.
He's been influential. I don't know if he's been good.
I mean, I don't agree with you in the slightest.
He's been questionable in a lot of his positioning. Remember that Bard? It was a Bard game he played. He got caught out.
He played incredibly good. Yeah, but you're talking about consistent catches out, which I will agree with.
Consistently caught out.
The reason that they're able to push the end, like you can look at pretty much any of the casters. 100% agree with me too. Sword Art is probably a top 3 to 5 support at Worlds right now. He's been one of the most influential players in the early game, and the reason they've been able to push the tempo is because of how often he's been affecting the map in the early game. Like his Bard play has been actually incredible. His Leona and all of these other characters have just been out of his Leona was Barrel, wasn't it? But still, like all around, I think he has been one of the better supports. His Bard game, and specifically in what series was it? Was it the GDG series?
I was talking about the recent one against Top.
Where it was game 2.
It was game 2. It was game 2 where he got caught out, and then he gave over Dragon to Top, where he was literally in a bad position. I think
you're pointing out individual pieces, where so is the overall play. Their individual, like essentially, their individual play as a whole has actually drastically increased, in my opinion, purely because Huang Fong and Sword Art have stepped it up. Like they were probably one of the worst lane. Like if we look at why they got 3-0'd in the summer split, it was because Huang Fong. It was because they focused top lane. This is what they did. Karsa actually completely dumpstered top lane by consistently going up there, and still Huang Fong and Sword Art lost the lane. And that's how they lost the game, is because they now not only got ganked in top lane, but bot lane lost on their own. Like, the reason they are able to generate gold in all of these things is because not only are they not losing lane anymore, Sword Art is proactive around the map and all these things, and it's allowing them to be able to branch out into other aspects. Like, I don't know if you can really deny it. Like, I don't even know if it's deniable that Sword Art is one of the best supports of the tournament. Like, I don't know how many you could really legitimately put above him.
I think honestly, Hillsang performed better than him a good majority of their games too.
I don't agree with that. I think he played he played pretty well this tournament. I do want to point out. But again,
I think Sword Art is the beneficiary of his teammates.
He's literally the reason he pushes the tempo of this team more often than Sword. I mean, so SOFM is not. He's somebody who reacts more so than anything.
If you look at it, SOFM pushes the tempo.
He does not push the tempo. He's a Graves player. You can't really push the tempo as a Graves player. He just contests objectives. Like,
my thing with Sword Art is that against Damwon, which we'll preview later, but he is going to get exposed. Like he's all the problems that Top did not expose against Sword Art that I consistently saw are going to get punished. Like him going into the river with
that's a mistake. That's not a consistent thing.
It's that when I see him doing these things, these are problems that like Top did not punish him. Like that the issue
I can point out
as the reason why they lost. They didn't punish almost any Sunni mistakes significantly. Why is Jackie flashing over the wall and healing and he dies?
The reason they lost was because Knight was just atrocious this series. Like if you look at a lot of his just individual mistakes, skillful, like he actually missed a flash Orianna ult, which is just not something you usually see from like all around. I think Top Esports is individually and as a whole a better team than Suning. I've loved Suning since the beginning of the year. I've loved SOFM for 5 years straight, but they're not.
That sounds.
It's true. Like I love SOFM. He's been one of my favorite characters. I've watched pretty much every Snake gaming game, and then the LN gaming. I like all around.
That atrocious fucking LNG bot lane that existed for.
I'm just saying, like, crap, the bot lane was better than what's it called? The Snake ever put together for him. But like all around, I think that he's individually, like as a whole, they are not as good as Top Esports because the problem with this team right now, the only roles where I think they actually went out are support and jungle, and I think maybe top in some situations. But again, we saw Bin pretty much won most every situational, like 1v1. We saw SOFM actually completely dumpstered Carson. That was just incredible. Like SOFM was just
My
put
thing
Carson.
with with top is that I don't really know. None of the beside maybe I don't know. It's hard to say. The top laners from the LPL didn't impress me as much as I thought they would. I mean, they played pretty good. I think Ben has been. I think Ben has been the best top laner at the tournament so far. I think Ben
I would say Naguri's probably still the top one. Like it's hard for me to put anybody above him, even though he's not individually looked incredible. I think Bin again has more probably solo kills, but like at the same time, it's hard.
I mean, that jacked play that he did in games 3 and 4 should be indicators. What's up, Porter? How are you doing, my man? So where do we start out? Like, where do we start? Because there's so much in the offseason right now. Because if you're not in the World 2020 Championship Final, you're in the offseason, you're at home, you're doing nothing, and you're literally looking at a point where if you want to do better next year, what do? Do you rebuild? Do you take a step back and go, do I need to build some talent? Because the issue with, let's start with North America. So before we get into any of that, I want to say, thanks, Tyler. Oh, hi, Adam. How you doing, man? Bjergsen retires for everybody. So the long-standing North American GOAT, Bjergsen, has retired. So there's going to be some of the subscribers that I have my main channel over here. They don't know who this is. So Bjergsen essentially is the Michael Jordan of the NALCS. He literally just retired about, a day ago? Almost 2 days ago. So, my God, this man has accolades out of the wazoo. Four MVPs. He's won about, 7 or 8 titles. He's won an IEM, which I don't think counts, but hey, it goes towards his legacy. You also he's the only TSM, he was part of the only TSM roster that has ever gotten to top 8. That's also an accomplishment in itself. I don't care if they were auto-seeded. I don't even care. He was part of the only TSM roster to ever get out of group stage. That's also an accomplishment in it of itself. He's played really well at some of the worlds he's been at. I think his big standout world championship performance was in 2015, where he was literally just trying to 1v9 against LGD and Origin, and what was the other team in there? LGD, Origin, and KT Rolster. And he has been an incredible player. He is the one that pioneered the LCS to look at import mid laners differently. And I personally think that, no one's really going to ever have a peak like him unless Doublelift retires, and Doublelift would be technically the Kobe Bryant of League. Sneaky has accolades also big like that. Xmithy has accolades big like that. Outside of Bjergsen, Sneaky, Doublelift, and Xmithy, outside of those 4 players, there's not someone with a decorative storied career. I think Jensen would be like your 5th place guy. Jensen, then you throw High in there someplace. Meteos, you could probably be in there as like your low and top 10. Poe Belter's kind of in there as well. But other than that, I personally think no one is ever going to get to the pedigree that Bjergsen was, because of not only did he improve the LCS, he also played a style where if you built another team, you had to worry about, how am I going to take down Bjergsen? Like, he was constantly eating up bans in the draft phase. He was constantly a threat no matter what champion he was on. There was some splits where obviously he wasn't the best. I will debate that until the end of time. Certain splits he was not the best. But he was the best in offering other things that you didn't get out of other mid laners. Because just because he wasn't the best at carrying in certain splits doesn't mean he wasn't best at being supportive, roaming. He finally would roam around the map, and I was like, this man roaming is atrocious, and no one was pointing this out.
Oh my God.
His roaming was atrocious. His roaming was bad. He roamed always at bad timings when he couldn't play off his laners, and he was punished for it.
That is a reiterated point out of people who watch Season 8 Worlds and Season 7 Worlds, and consistently repeated this thing over and over again, and I will never agree with that specific statement. They never picked characters that could roam around the map for him in that specific aspect, on top of the fact that, again, a lot of them were early, like mid-game skirmishes or mid like kind of jungle to like river skirmishes that he actually did try and take a part of, but they were lost before he got over there. Like, I don't know if I don't like the concept of him not roaming as much, because again, most of the mid laners at this point in time had not developed this strategy because it was not a very common thing at this point. Like, it really got perfected during the they're doing B. But again, we didn't really see too many mid laners start roaming out of their lane until about season 8 to 9 is when it actually started getting big. For the most part, it was still standardized laning, and then sometimes you'd roam around the map. And if you didn't have TF, you'd kind of still consistently lane and try and push advantages around there. If you wanted to try and transfer that into leads, like pretty much like transfer that into leads into objectives, there were not enough Rift Heralds. There weren't that many Rift Heralds. There weren't that many dragons that were that influential. The stats, the bonuses they gave at the early game were not incredible. So like, I don't want to say that his laning was. I mean, his roaming was atrocious because that was just the standardized. This is how the game works at this point. Like again, maybe he could have, but again, I don't think he was worse than the average player. Maybe slightly above, anyways.
But now it's time to take away the rose-tinted glasses, so let's not look through nostalgia, people. I personally think, and I'll always think this till League ends, which is never going to end. It's always going to be here, essentially, which is good, because that means I get to create content for it. I think Bjergsen retired because he went 0-6 in the group stage he was at for the 2020 World Championship, because that was the literal first thing he mentioned. Like, if people can't read through context lens of what someone is saying, I mean, I can't help you get better ears. I really think he retired because of that.
I think everybody thinks that.
It depends. That narrative might get thrown out eventually, where people would probably just say, "Oh yeah, he retired because he had been playing for so long." I mean, Doublelift even said he was gonna potentially retire too. Like, I think Doublelift said that they had like a 10% win rate in scrims, and Suning blasted them every single time they played. Like, he said something about like them losing in 20 minutes consistently. I'm like, yeah, if you don't, Suning are pretty much pretty decently fast paced. If you don't play fast against Suning, if you can't play fast against Suning, you're hopeless, because that's like a bare minimum of what they do, you know. So
what are we going to right now? What are we talking about?
I personally think that, well, I just think that Bjergsen retired because the pressure of coming back from a 0-6 group stage would be too much. And, like, I've always wanted TSM to play a new mid laner. Not because I think Bjergsen's bad. It's because, like, Bjergsen, it's not even being an overbearing voice. I think teams get thrown into this ideology of, oh, I gotta keep this guy because they offer so much. You don't know what anybody else can offer unless you actually try it. Like, there's so many rosters throughout the course of League's history that have won world championships, that have played new rosters, probably thinking that they're never gonna actually see success. Let's take a look at Fnatic, who consistently swap out their roster a lot, actually, over the course of time, and have success at the World Championship.
They usually replace the weakest member, though. I think it's really a difference.
IG had a lot of teams they replaced, and finally got it to the point where
I do want to say it's a little bit different when you're replacing the worst members of your team, because like that makes sense. That's like, it's like reasonable. No one's ever, in my opinion, there's not really too many people that actually, is there a team that's ever succeeded while replacing the single best player in their team? I don't think it's really ever happened.
No, I'm just saying it from the concept of,
you
can go through many roster iterations and find success.
Well, I'm just saying, without actual context, like, these kind of things don't really mean too much. Replacing the bare minimum, the worst players on the team is a normal thing to do. It's actually how you improve teams. Replacing the best player, I don't know if it's going to make a positive influence. I do think it's going to change the attitude of this team, though. I do actually think that he's the most overbearing player on the teams in terms of voice. He will not actually. The game is played in a way that Bjergsen wants it to be played. He is the one that decides, again, when the comp is picked, like what type of player, champion he picks, which kind of develops what strategy they have to play. They fall off in the mid game because, again, mostly he lanes and they try and play around his laning phase. And when they get to that, he just kind of forces objectives. And I think the reason that I think it's a good choice, even though he's the single best player inside of TSM LCS. And probably not the LCS, Core JJ is better than him, but like one of the best players inside of the LCS, I think the reason that I think might be a moderately okay thing to do is because at this point in time, this team needs to know how to play in a way that's not reflective of Bjergsen's idea of how the game needs to be played. And it has nothing individually player-wise, they're not going to find anybody better than him. And it's just unfortunate. But at the same time, I think that this might be good for them. They might be able to figure out strategies that don't rely on what can Bjergsen do for us. I'm really hoping that is the direction this team takes.
So with Bjergsen retiring, I think that though it does leave a big hole in the LCS in terms of mid lane position, it does open the opportunity to something that could be good. I think that him retiring could potentially lead towards us finding another player that could be the next big superstar. Now, if you're TSM right now, you're looking at the next big superstar. TSM has only ever had 2 mid laners. That is crazy. Just like Cloud9 has only ever had 2 ADCs. That is ridiculous. They've been in the league since for like 7 years, and they've only had like 2 people in like the most prominent positions. That's just the crazy thing. You've only ever had Reginald and Bjergsen. That's just how crazy it does that sound. Like,
it's actually, like, I agree with that. That's kind of weird. I mean, the reason they never replaced Bjergsen is because, like, why would you replace the best player?
He was actually, he was, like, I'm not trying to, like, suck on Bjergsen's big giant cock, even though I've met him before, and I actually really like him. I met him, and I really like him. He is, my God, if you guys weren't watching back in Season 5, this man was a monster. Like, literally a monster. I remember there was a game against, like, freaking... like Gravity when they were a team, and he just blasted King consistently. He would blast anybody that wasn't like Jensen. Yeah. He would blast anybody that wasn't Jensen, and then Jensen also eventually. In my own personal opinion, Jensen is better mechanically. Bjergsen is better.
That is untrue. He's not as good.
I think eventually Jensen became a better player, but it wasn't over the course of like one split. It took a lot of splits to do it. Overall, I think the breakout split for
fanboy, dude.
I'm just saying though, Jensen's breakout split in Season 6 when it was in the spring.
I will admit, I think Jensen was better probably one season. And I think that is the limitation.
But the problem is that the narrative for Bjergsen is that he had bad teammates this season round. Jensen has had bad teammates a lot of when he was on Cloud9.
The thing about it is,
but why doesn't that work for Bjergsen then?
I'm not using narratives. I'm just going based off play.
Oh, not narratives. I'm just saying that when Bjergsen has worse players and he gets praised, Jensen has worse players.
I don't care about the worst players or anything. I just watched Bjergsen and I watched Jensen. I think mechanically Bjergsen's always been quite a bit better. I think that Jensen actually mastered the art of being able to roam around the map more effectively.
I think Jensen showed me that he was willing to take a shot for the team. Bjergsen showed me that he was going to play carry no matter what. Jensen was, I would say willing, because it's hard to say if he's willing, because I don't know what came up with the strategy. Remember how he would play Zillion?
He like spammed Echo when he was good. Like, he played Assassins for like a majority of... I don't think he ever really took the backseat. This is actually one problem I have with this new Team Liquid roster, is specifically that aspect of team, is Jensen, is the fact he's never taken the backseat. We'll see if he's actually going to be able to.
Oh, because that'll go into our next point. But is there anything you want to cover for Bjergsen? I think being a head coach... I do want to pivot this. Just because you were a good player doesn't mean you'll be a good coach. I've seen this in the NBA consistently.
Yeah, but again, I think that maybe him viewing the game when it's in hindsight. I want to point this out. When games are looked at in hindsight, I could probably make like calls that would like make sense to like an average player, like when it comes to that. But when I look at it, when I'm in the game, it's a completely different situation. The game becomes substantially harder to play inside of the inside of a real-time kind of situation. It becomes... Yeah.
Bjergsen kept mentioning that it wasn't due to the 0-6 world thing, but there's no way that wasn't a factor into
I don't think
the first thing he mentioned. That's the crazy part.
I'm just saying, no one actually agrees with that. Everybody knows that's what it's about. He's just being dishonest with us, and no one actually cares. Just let him say whatever he wants to.
Yeah, it's just PR. It's what he got to do.
The problem is Parth is still there. I mean, it doesn't matter. We could talk on Parth for 6 seasons straight, and nothing's going to change. It's going to be up to them. I'm not going to consistently
let it be known. Let it be known. Parth was the general manager of TSM and the head coach. Just let that sink in. TSM is amazing, man. Like, that would never fly on any other team but that team. That is ridiculous.
Carry on world tanks and supports. You know what? I think he played terrible this Worlds. I'm going to agree with that. I think he was just actually atrocious this Worlds. I don't think he really had a good game. So I won't disagree with that, but I don't think that Jensen is better than him just purely off that.
I think Jensen was better at Worlds, which will bode better for Jensen later on.
I agree with that.
Being better at Worlds is all that people going to...
Are you saying consistently or just that specific Worlds?
It's been mostly consistently.
I think he's been terrible at every other Worlds.
Outside of the 2019 year he had,
I don't think he's ever been good against good mid laners. I think this is the first Worlds where I think against specifically like Angel and like Caps and stuff, I don't think he played that poorly. I agree with that. I think
he looks bad in comparison if you put him against the best mid laners, but that would happen with Bjergsen
this year. I think he looked good this year, like even against Angel and all that stuff, who's actually shown to be one of the better mid laners at Worlds. I think his Syndra game into him was pretty decent. Like, all around, I don't think Jensen has had a bad Worlds. I think he's matched up against some of the best mid laners at the World Championships. But at the same time, I think this is the first championship I've really seen him do it when he goes against.
Would you call Bjergsen world class? Because I wouldn't say he's world class.
I think when he's playing in an A, I mean, I think he genuinely was playing at a standard that would have been world class if he had played it to this extent when he came to Worlds. Like, as much people want to say, like, out of reactionary, without context, again, I think a lot of these things can say, well, he came up against better competition, when in reality, I think a lot of the mid laners that he actually faced weren't playing that well.
I love when people use that. He came against better competition. No shit, he's going to Worlds.
Yeah. I just think that's not the only factor. I think that's one decent factor, but I think he really did get into his own head as much as people don't want to say it. This is not like a lot of them were just missed mechanical exexecutions that I was not.
Oh my god, those LeBlanc cues we had to watch live.
It was
oh
the
my
E's
god.
mostly. Like he used the incorrect combo. He used WR EQ instead of WR like WQRE or WR EQ. Like it was again he was waiting for the QE. Because instead, if you use the first part of E instead of I'm using it before,
isn't that where
if you use
the chain holds them, right?
Yeah, the chain holds them. But I'm saying if you use the Q after the E, because again he's doing it in turret, so he can't wait for the full duration, you won't ever pop the Q. Like I know he knows that he was never able to actually proc the Q in that entire situation. But again, I think it really got into his nerves. He's trying to really bring the game back, and it really became a bad situation for them. It really spiraled downhill, and it's just unfortunate that he got to that point where he just never was able to bounce back fully.
For me, I just think that NA was never a place you could really see Bjergsen thrive, only outside of just a domestic sense. Like, I always wondered, like, if he was actually in Europe, how much better he could have gotten and where he could have went to internationally if he just stayed in Europe. Because a lot of people said, or this came up on like forums and like Reddit and like some analysts. They're like, what if he stayed in Europe and he went to teams like Fnatic, G2, Origin? Could he have actually gone to Worlds and did really well with better teammates around him? That's something that he'll have to think about, throughout his career. But I think personally, he should have stayed with TSM for a few years and then went back to Europe. Honestly,
it's just all down. Financially, I think he's substantially better than
outside of financially. If he was
financially, is probably the only thing that he cares about at this point. Like, who cares? Like, honestly, if you're playing in a professional aspect and you're going to make millions of dollars on TSM, or you're going to make hundreds of thousands in Europe, where would you go? I don't blame him in the slightest. It's 100%. As much as people want to say it, no one would pass up this amount of money.
That's a lot of financial security.
It's a massive amount of money.
But and again, that's family. They're set for life. I think if he's looking at it from a family sense, eventually, I think that's fine. That's fine. Overall.
I mean, he's had a family. He's been the dad to pretty much every single one of the junglers inside of this TSM roster we've ever had. Just a bad one.
But that's how I think it is. I think that personally, once he was established that he was a good mid laner here, he could have went back to Europe and been actually pretty good, make the playoffs, potentially made Worlds, and actually had a shot at international success, because he just wanted to get out of group stage past the 2014 World Championship, and he never did. And I felt so bad for him, because literally people don't remember this. In 2017 World Championship, he could have got out of the group stage if they took down Flash Wolves, who were literally they were winless as well. They were winless. If they had beat Flash Wolves, they would have got out of the group, because Misfits later on lost to Team World Elite, who later on would not have had to play a tiebreaker, because they obviously beat Misfits in the head-to-head, and that's what led to Misfits playing TSM because of lots of Flash Wolves. They were so close. They were one. They dropped the game to the worst team in the group, and that screwed them over out of getting out of the group stage.
Just like Team Liquid this year against Machi. I mean, it just happens. If you drop a game against a bad team, that is 100% on you. A good team won't usually drop many consistent games, especially in a do or die kind of game like this. Alliance is so frustrating because they had so much talent on that team.
They perfect gamed a Korean team. That's what's crazy.
I'm just saying they had so much talent on that team, and they 100% choked it away. They should not have ever lost. It's just embarrassing mostly. Like, I'm just so really surprised.
Because some people have asked me, do I think that Cloud9 could have beaten Alliance if they had a tiebreaker if Alliance didn't beat Kaboom? I mean, I don't know. They were actually pretty evenly matched in their games. I mean, it could literally go either way. Licorice on TSM, he would probably blow his brains out.
Mean, they have Broken Blade right now, and I really don't think they need... They're
thinking about giving Broken Blade to Golden Guardians, actually.
Giving him?
Trading him.
Giving?
Or, like, they think about opting into.
Oh, they're gonna give him Broken Blade, and they're gonna take. Let's just take who he
Buy Licorice's contract from Cloud9.
Well, just at this point in time, what does Cloud9 have? They don't have a top laner now. Like, are they keep? Oh wait, no, I forgot they got a new one.
Yeah,
what's his name? They got Fudge. Like,
yeah.
Why would you?
Because I personally thought that Team Liquid would get Licorice. Licorice is perfect for them. Literally.
Yeah, but you know who else is perfect? Kind of.
Yeah.
Alphari.
SOFM.
Oh, SFM's definitely perfect for them.
No, you know what? Jensen was throwing some shade from like all the recent reports. He was like, "I want to play with the stronger jungler."
It's not really shade.
I love Jensen so much.
It's not shade in the slightest.
Broxah was weak. Broxah was a weak jungler.
Broxah was a stronger jungler is definitely the kind of situation he really deserved. I mean, he played really well. They're just like in a meta that's kind of shifting dynamically around how fast the jungler can push the tempo of the game. He really didn't have an influence. Core JJ was the most impact. He ganked more than anybody else combined on the team.
Oh, right. So a lot of people said, why would... Because, okay, so Alphari had a lot of bidding offers. And then it was between Team Liquid, Rogue, and Fnatic. Now, Fnatic fans, if you're watching this, Fnatic wanted to replace Bwipo. I don't want to hear about some narrative BS content shit you're going to throw me. They were trying to replace this guy. Except Alphari didn't want to...
No, did you hear why they stopped?
Why?
The reason they stopped is because after his performance at Worlds, they stopped going after Alphari after that.
I mean,
they stopped pursuing Alphari once Bwipo performed on the stage.
But how's Bwipo gonna Bwipo is gonna read that and go, man, they actually try to replace me.
Yeah, but you know what that also says? Man, I performed to the standard where they thought they shouldn't replace me just because I played so well at Worlds. That's a good
but
thing
he
to look
was thought to have gotten replaced before that, though. That's the caveat to that, is that if he did not perform very well, he'd be out of the team. That is just, I don't know. That would probably make me feel low-key kind of, like, I don't know. It's not bad, but it's just like they were trying to replace him. That was...
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think, you know what, are we starting to talk on Alphari? Because I actually did kind of get some points together for this specific aspect.
Okay. All right, guys. Bjergsen Retirement. Glad to have met you, man. When we finally can go back to the LCS, I can't wait to, get a picture with you and talk to you again and talk to you about being a coach. All right, so let's do this. Alphari is now on Team Liquid, essentially, because nothing can actually be officially put out there until the offseason. The offseason technically doesn't start until November 17th. That's what it's always been. But teams right now are obviously going through all the, processes of negotiation, seeing who can bid, what rosters they want to obviously have. And let me bring it up right here. Share screen. There you go. Jacob Wolf. If you guys don't follow him, make sure you follow him for all your reports. Sources at Team Liquid are nearing a multi-year deal with former Origin top laner at Alphari that is worth more than $1 million per year. And what's really interesting in this article is it also says that Team Liquid are interested in grabbing Santorin from FlyQuest, actually.
I don't like that.
I like that because
I think Santorin, he's not... Yeah, I do think changing the roster up is big. And the amount at which he pushes the pace of the game is actually objectively not that fast paced. We saw him get outpaced by a lot of, when it came to actually getting outpaced by ganking junglers, he 100% got demolished. Every time a jungler's focus centralized around ganking, he is always behind the pace. The only thing he actually does is focus centralized around objective dragging.
Right? 1 million a year? NA and overpaying players. Name a more iconic duo than that.
He is an objective-based only jungler, and I don't think that's 100% that good for, what's it called? Again, he has his eventual, what's it called? But again, we can look at a few series inside of FlyQuest where they looked at, TSM inside against TSM in the first spring split. He had 0 ganks that weren't initiated by Ignar. I think that's a big problem I have with this team Santorin specifically, is the fact that, Core JJ would initiate a lot of the stuff. Maybe that does actually cover up a lot of his flaws, but again, he's fast-paced in terms of just actually objective-based kind of control in comparison to actually ganking, and that's one big problem I have. If we, again, against TSM versus, what's it called, he was down 8 to 9 ganks in comparison to his 0. That
you
were
are
actually
still on that.
I am, because this is a consistent thing that he has a problem with. If you ever look at him against ganking junglers, he's always behind the pace.
I brought this up a lot. That's why I can't have Santorin over other ganking junglers, because Santorin just ganking. I think it doesn't exist in his category.
It's not like he never does it, but he never does it without another person there usually. It's not like it.
And he only really ever ganks for the mid laners. Like that's why Jensen wants him, because he knows that Santorin
this team,
will play towards
if they
mid.
get Alphari, cannot have him ganking mid ever. Mid cannot ever get ganked with this team, and there's a very big reason as to why this should happen. I think right now, with the amount of resources you're going to have to funnel into both Core JJ, who's going to be the most interactive person, which means you're going to have to focus bot a lot, and you're going to have the single most dominant kind of lane-focused top laner, not weak-sided at all top laner. Inside of Alphari, like what options do you have at this point? You're going to have to focus a lot of ganks up there. If we look at if you want to see a few of Alphari's stats right now, if you compare,
can you show your screen?
My screen?
Yeah.
I mean, I have it on a notepad. I mean, I guess I could do that.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm just saying, if we look at this right now, we look at the kill participation. Impact had the 11th kill participation inside of all the NALCS, where so is Alphari had the second most inside of the in the what's it called? Even though again their win rate's not great, his damage share in terms of just how much damage he outpushed in comparison to the rest of his team was the highest out of every single top laner in the EU LCS, where so is Impact had the 7th. Again, a lot of these things don't 100% matter, but CS differential, Impact is usually down 1 CS, and he's like the 8th best. Where so is Alphari is the top laner inside of the LCS with positive 18 CS up on his laner in pretty much consistent games. Like, I think one big problem I have with actually using like ganking mid at this point is now you have a high priority top laner who is, again, it was subjected to the single most first bloods. He was the highest first blood victim in all of the EU scene. In comparison to Impact, who never got ganked at all, he was one of the lowest priority top laners. A lot of the junglers are going to start prioritizing top laner, like kind of focused. And if you don't start going up there to try and help him, he's going to fall behind. He's not going to be playing weak side because he's a carry-oriented jungler. Like if we've seen him on Malphite for the specific Kennen matchup that he thinks is good for some reason. But for the most part, we're going to see a lot of situations where they're going to have to focus top side and bot side, obviously, with Core JJ and Tactical. Jensen is going to have to take the backseat this season because they can't focus Danks for him at this point. He's going to have to play team-oriented mid laners. He can't really get as much resources because resources are going to be funneled into the ADC, which is the main portion of this team. And Alphari now, who's going to be hogging up a lot of resources, there's going to be a lot less resources available for Jensen at this point. And I really don't know how that's going to impact his play. I really have never seen him as not the number one player on his team. Sometimes you could say he was 1B to double it, but I really don't agree with that. Like he's only played with weak side top laners ever. Like it's just always been the case.
So this is what also was said. Liquid has interest in FlyQuest jungler Santorin, sources said. Santorin will become a free agent on November 16th, but as of Sunday, he has not been given permission by FlyQuest to speak to other teams. Prior to that date, he and Team Liquid management have not spoken as of Sunday. Jensen, let's see, Jensen was a big, as I alluded to, Jensen's voice has been integral to Liquid's free agent desires as he wanted Alphari to join the team and is pushing for a stronger jungler who he can trust. Because if you see how FlyQuest plays, Santorin is really dedicated to playing towards mid if he knows he has a stronger mid laner. That's really crazy. He'll have played with all the best mids, Power People, Bjergsen, and Jensen. That's crazy.
I mean, all around, I don't know if this specific aspects kind of fix their problems because they're again, this is what Alphari opens up for this team. Because they had an impact before, they couldn't play any carry-oriented junglers, so that's why we saw the pace of Team Liquid actually shift kind of slower. Because with only tank junglers, you can't have a solid 1-3-1 comp because tanks really don't succeed at that much. But with Alphari coming into the team, this really opens up, like kind of broadens the team's abilities at this point because they can play a lot more 1-3-1 comps. With Alphari being very lane dominant and being able to play carries, they're going to be able to play 1-3-1 comps. They won't be pushed into comps that scale towards the late game and stuff because, again, with tanks in the top lane, you can't really focus. There's no reason to focus on early game skirmishes because you can really centralize your focus on the late game because you're always going to have that damage threat, that engage threat from the top lane. Now they can shift it towards we have the ability to put that, plus we have the ability to play 1-3-1 comps. And that's really going to open up a lot, but they won't be able to play that if they have a slow-paced jungler. And they will have and if they have a slow-paced jungler who's focused or a moderately fast-paced jungler who's only focused on mid lane, Alphari's going to fall behind because there's going to be a massive amount of resources thrown at him to try and put him back behind. Like, I really
But is
don't
that
know
no
how.
different from Xerxes? Xerxes was permanently weak side just like Santorin, and he barely ganked either.
Yeah, that's why they lost so much. What? That's why they had a 30% win rate. He was the highest first blood victim in the entire league. Like, it shifted drastically from the first split. Like, it's really the big reason as to why they started losing is because everybody's like, wait, everybody else on this team sucks. Why are we not focusing Alphari? Fix Team Liquid's main issue? I mean, it really opens up.
It fixes one issue, is that they can play carries more consistently. That's
No.
one issue they can
I think
fix.
this is the one big thing. Like, again, they are able to play faster paced because with ability, you are not forced to scale once you're able to have a carry side top laner because you can with 1-3-1 comps, they actually come online a lot faster. I do actually think
Santorin is slow paced. Like,
it's not
even in the FlyQuest games they had at Worlds that where they were in the games with Dragon X and top, he was perennially getting outpaced by other slower paced junglers.
I don't think he's
no, they weren't because it was Karsa and Piosik.
Like, Piosik was really fast paced this season.
Who else was it? Unicorns of Love jungler.
I always forget his name.
Anatic. He was pretty fast, all things considered. He just had shitty laners. Other than that, like, TL's issue is being a slow team, right? So why do you bring another slow-paced jungler? If you want a faster-paced jungler, why not just buy Blabber from Cloud9 then? If you really want a faster-paced jungler, you can get Blabber.
I do want to point out jungler, right? Might force a lot of skirmishes, which is one aspect I could think of that could make this a positive influence. But again, I do think he's going to focus on mid ganks. I really think this is going to be bad for them specifically because of that aspect. Because again, Alphari has to win without getting ganked by junglers, but which is going to inevitably happen because he's going to be on a carry. You put him behind, and you're able to win off that. I think this is inevitably going to be kind of a weird situation where Team Liquid is going to have to find its footing in the beginning of the year. But they have a massive amount of talent on this team. Like, there are so many good players on this team now. It's just incredible. Like, I think that's one of the best aspects of this team is how good all of these players can play individually. Like, every single one of these players, top lane is probably the best at his position in the league. Mid laner is arguably the best player position at his position in the league. The ADC, a top 2 ADC in the league, and then we have the best player in the league in support. Like, the big thing about it, the big question mark for this team, who's going to decide the identity for this team is who is the jungler. Like, 1-3-1 comp, again, comes on the line earlier, but why does it matter if your carry's put behind? Not only do you not scale now, but you don't have a good 1-3-1 comp to kind of put you back on the line. Like,
the problem that Broxa brought up consistently with Team Liquid's gameplay was they were not proactive. Santorin, and though I do think he's gotten better over the years in terms of his issues, he's not exactly proactive. He's proactive based off the champions you give him. He's very champion dependent on which proactivity they base their comp around. So what was the game against Suning where they level 1 invaded? That's a proactive comp because if you don't do that, you are literally going to lose. But what about all the other games where they don't do that? Like, people got to factor this in. The games they lost week 1 where they were not being proactive enough. The games they won week 2, why did they win the games week 2? Because they were being proactive. You see the difference there? Like, I don't think Santorin is going to be the fix to that. They want a consistent thing where they're playing faster. I think fix that.
I'm going to point out the meta of this Worlds right now. If you look at all the successful teams, we look at Damon. Beryl was pretty much the one that pushed the pace of the team in his Leona game and all this stuff. If we look at Sword Art, Suning, their Sword Art has come online drastically, and they've actually started pushing a lot faster tempo. If we look at Team Liquid, they were able to be proactive around the map because Core JJ really did make things happen in the early game, was able to make this team pretty solid. If we look at Mickey X on G2, he was the single reason as to why they were able to win a lot of their games in group stages. Like, one of the most interesting games to me is still Team Liquid versus G2 when they were bad. It was just a battle between supports and who could carry harder. Like, I think support is the single most integral aspect of League right now. It's the most important aspect. And that's, like, I'm not going to blame Santorin for getting carried by Ignar because I think that's just the state of the game right now. But at the same time, like, how much credit can you actually give to Santorin? Because a lot of his ganks are preemptively set up by Ignar, where it's more so if it's not Ignar doing anything, he's going to just kind of hover around Dragon and help him there.
I
Like,
just don't think that Santorin really fixed the core issue of them being a slow team. I think he just makes them
I don't.
a mildly better team.
He makes them again. Skirmishes are more likely to happen because again, he's more proactive when it comes to securing objectives, and that's one thing that can start fights. That is the only thing I could think of. He really is something like that is going to slightly make him faster paced, and they have a better top laner now. But
How would I word this?
Well, I know what you're saying. Like I agree with it.
Is he that much of an upgrade over Broxah?
I do.
That's kind of the bigger thing.
I think team fight first. I think that's one of the main aspects I did like about Broxah is that he was always hovering instead of using like trying to DPS. Like he kind of played Graves as a backline carry peeler, which was kind of weird. He'd like hover around his ADC and then he'd smoke screen and auto attack whoever's on the ADC. And that's kind of how you play him. But like if you look at like SFM's diving the backline, like pushing everything, like perfect, like frame perfect flash. I mean, auto attack resetting with his E. Like you don't see that at a Broxah, but at the same time, he played him to a capable extent, and it really was useful to this team.
The general point of wanting to build your team for the next season for everyone who's maybe this is your first season watching, maybe this is, the point of upgrading a roster is to fix issues you previously had in the year you're currently competing in. I think this year Team Liquid players have been very open that they want to play a faster gameplay. Literally like Cloud9 was back in the LCS 2020 Spring Split. Like they wanted to be fast paced just like Cloud9 were. And they really never ever hit that. There were moments where you saw it, yeah, but that's going to be an anomaly where like everyone keeps bringing up the Broxah game where he had no ganks. Oh my god, it was 0-0 and like 1 or something like that.
It was 0-0-0 until they started ending the game. He actually went inside of a team fight, was inside of their team. The team fight ends, the entire enemy team's dead. He still doesn't have an assist.
I don't know how it happened. He was at full health too.
I don't get it. I think his team fight's pretty decently good, but at the same time, like he really didn't do anything. Like Broxah really fell off a cliff last year, and it really carried over into this year because I think he's even worse than last year. Like I don't want to trash Broxah too much. I really, as a person, he's incredible. He's a really nice person. I think his mentality as a leader, probably or maybe not that, or just his positive influence on the team is really what made them be able to bounce back from their kind of poor start at the beginning of the season. Like you really don't see too many teams bounce back pretty well from an 0-2 start. It doesn't happen very often. Like I think that and he's one of the he was part of that 0-3 Fnatic team too. That's something I got to give him credit for. He did start out on that team too. So like I think he's been a part of a lot of underachieving teams and made them be able, like maybe it wasn't him specifically.
So he's like pole belter for junglers. He doesn't make better teams better.
He's a positive influence on attitudes, I would say, and that's always something as a mental focused team. We could see teams like Gen G mentally collapse when they start losing. There's a whole documentary on what happened inside of the Spring Split playoffs when they got behind. They mentally imploded, and all these things being said like to the other players. They didn't have a leader on that team, and that's one of the big problems that I think might pop up in this team now. I don't know if he was the leader, but I do think this might be an aspect that we need to watch out for.
But Jensen said he wanted a stronger jungler. Now, I mean, if you're looking at stronger junglers, it's hard to say. Maybe Svenskeren. I think Svenskeren would have been a perfect addition to the team.
I'm going to be honest. I think Jat was a really good addition to this team this year. I think one of the best coaching staff moves has been Jat. I think all around, I agree with that though. Like I think they've been playing slow for such a long time. There must be some common thread, but I mean, they've been. Yeah, I agree. There's a common thread, and I think there is some aspect of environmental thing. I don't want to put it on Jet because when he made a very positive influence when he came in, but there is still some similarities between each. There's been coaching staff changes too. So, like from my knowledge, what was the coaches from?
They moved that one guy to the head analyst or something like that, and Jet was head coach. I forgot his name.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, I agree with it. They're slow paced, and it's been a very common thing for this team since all these years. But I think that they've really made positive strides in the right direction this year. Specifically,
bring back Dardoch.
I mean, I would always say, like, as much as Dardoch is actually atrocious in decision making in mid game, his early game presence is undeniably fast paced.
That's why he's on Dignitas. He can rot there for all I care. Just do whatever you want.
Fast paced junglers are something he might die 10 times after the first 3 ganks, but at the same time, he will also at least gank 10 times. So
You
that's
know
one.
what? If you die 10 times
But
against
just look at it.
S1
Like, I
imagine
love
dying
that.
against S1 10 times and you're not getting blasted
No,
consistently.
he's not as good as SOFM. He would just lose. Like SOFM is just better than him in
I,
every
no,
aspect.
because like if they want a faster paced jungler, why not just get Sven? If it's open, obviously, all these teams that they say these
I agree with
contracts are.
that. Sven
Like,
Skaren is probably a better addition to this team. As much as I don't think he played extremely well last year, I still
think
think
Sven Skaren's better with Jensen and Alphari because you factor in this. And people always say these things. It doesn't really matter in the contents of esports because contracts can be traded, but money doesn't matter. What I'm saying is that if you want a faster paced team and a faster paced jungler, the last option I would have is Santorin. I'm just saying.
I wouldn't say the last. I mean, wasn't Kane the head coach for most of it? Yeah, I mean,
Kane? Yeah, it was Kane. Yeah, that's
Kane obviously has a bad mentality towards League, and I'll agree with that. I mean, I think their fastest paced rosters were like 5 and 6, and that really kind of fell apart once they got rid of the fastest paced players on that team. Like all around, I mean, I don't know what actually is going to be the solution to this team.
Scarin, even Blabber, if Cloud9 were willing to give him, hey, Blabber might be the aggressive player you need, but then again, you have to factor in other things down the line when you have Blabber, Scarin, other junglers I can think of. Dardoch, they're not going to take Dardoch again. That's just ridiculous. Xmithie, no, they've already had him. Closer, if you want a closer, hey, he's pretty good.
You're taking who is probably one of the most anticipated rosters coming into next season and trying to take their best player as like, we need a jungler, just give him to us.
But it won't matter because they have imports, right? Because they would have
FPI is no longer an import.
No. For Team Liquid, they would have
you're talking about Team Liquid. Yeah, they could get him.
So like, I would have personally, if you want to go for a jungler, I would just go for Sven Skaren over Santorin.
Sven Skaren's still an import, isn't that?
Is he an import still?
I think
if he's not, then that's what I would have went for. But if he is, then obviously no. But Santorin's not a player that's going to make your team faster. He literally is like a stabilizer.
He's not. Again, I want to point out he's proactive in making objectives kind of beyond. Like if you look at a lot of their games, if you look at a lot of the games inside of the LCS specifically, he always has the leading, like he's always on top of dragon control and all that stuff, and I'll give him credit for that. What I don't give him credit for is, I think ganking is a very large majority of why teams, again, you focus ganks either on top sides, so once you get to mid-game team fights, even if you give up the first 2 drags, you got a lot of gold from the Rift Heralds, or you gank bot side and try and get early proactive control of the dragons in the early part of the game. Like, he doesn't really do either one of those. He kind of just goes for the dragons if the enemy team shows on the other side of the map, or he tries to trade Rift Herald for dragon, and I don't know how good of an ideology that is. But I like Team Liquid right now. I really like this roster, even with the addition of Santorin. I think all around every single roster move they made was an upgrade.
Oh my god. So Cloud9 let go of Inori as their LCS Academy jungler. They just tweeted this like 9 minutes ago. So Inori, hey, he might have a team he'll be on. He'll
be on the bench of somebody's team.
Oh my god.
We saw him. He had his chances.
Okay, so Inori, this is live right now. You guys are getting the C9. Nori, Cloud9 and I agreed to part ways, and I will now be entering free agency. My time there was amazing. I learned so much about my role, my coach, RO, and I'm thankful for him and everyone else on Cloud9. I'm looking for LCS/Academy offers. I have a lot of drive and motivation and a lot to give. I mean, he might be a better jungler than some of the people that I'm not thinking.
I've seen Inori has had a few chances on the LCS stage. Maybe not too much, but like, I don't know, man. I don't think so. I really don't think he's the solution to anybody's problems. I mean, I thought Mike Young was like the next thing at some point. I was like, man, this guy knows what he's doing. But he did not.
I'm saying it's not fair that other players get 30,000 chances like Golden Glue.
Yeah, but he had
like 2.
Yeah, Golden Glue actually had glimpses of, wow, this guy. Like, the thing about Golden Glue, everybody was like, wow, he's my favorite player to ever play with. And you have glimpses of like him in the academy scene where he pops off drastically. Like Inori, has Inori had any of those? He's not. I've never heard anybody saying, man, Inori's my favorite player to play with, and I really don't think I've ever seen a highlight clip of him. Like, I think just the difference.
We're judging these highlight clips now. What are we?
I'm just saying, like, That's okay. Let's calm down a little bit with that. I just think that's one of the big things. Golding was actually improved compared. No, he is 100% good right now. Like he is an average player, and that is better than you could ever say. Maybe even slightly above average. You don't know. He was like the 8th best mid laner.
So Xmithy is going to be a free agent as well. That's interesting. If Xmithy will not be playing on Immortals for this year, they want to rebrand. And that guy, Giliotto, who was the head coach for Origin and Schalke, will be the head coach for Immortals, actually. I think Xmithy being a free agent, Immortals, Giliotto.
Who's the head coach for who?
Giliotto is going to be Immortals head coach.
Wait, what team was he from again?
He head coach Origin, remember?
Oh, that's terrible.
Chris Davis says, "How's the dynamic Tark one trick and multi-role players doing?" Man, a lot actually. But Xmithy actually being a free agent.
Player, NBA, NFL, MLB, or NHL players similar to Golden Glue?
He's like James Harden.
No, he is not like James Harden. He's like Jeremy. I would say Jeremy Lin. Jeremy Lin is always positively talked to on a lot of the players, and when you put him in a role position, he actually plays pretty well when you're not focused on him. He had glimpses back in the day of when he was actually incredible, but now at this point in time, he's like not having a team because, again, he's really not putting up incredible numbers, but actually he's getting talked to right now about being brought back into this system. Like, I think that's an identical comparison. So the patch notes just came out. There's like Sejuani buffs. Sejuani needs buffs. Like, she's never going to be good, even with these buffs, until they reduce the cooldown on her Q. Like, she's actually atrocious right now. Like, I think that's one of the biggest problems I have with this kind of situation Sejuani's in, is that she can never be a top laner, obviously, first off, with the ability of her Q being a 20-second cooldown. So that's just kind of going to narrow her down to the jungle role. And on top of the fact that she's just not, Sedge needs buff to be on. She needs a Q buff, and I always am going to stress that that is 100% what she needs. I think the CD on her Q is a little bit long. I think her passive's pretty decent. Like, again, I think I like the resistances in it. You have to actually hit her once, or she's going to have like 1,000,008 like armor and stuff. Instead of and Mumo ult stuns now instead of snare disarms. Like, it was really no difference. Like, everybody like rarely anybody took advantage of that in like the lowest deload, so it doesn't really matter.
All right. So, what do you think about Xmithy being a free agent?
I mean,
I don't know. That's not bad.
I mean, I don't know if it's going to make a difference at this point. I mean, who's going to really pick him up? I mean, he has he played moderately well. I mean, he was better than Broxa. He was better than Spigot for most of the year.
Imagine replacing Xmithy, and then he plays better than Broxa.
I mean, I think a good team that would have Xmithy. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know.
Who would you pick up?
CLG. CLG.
I mean, it would be better for CLG. I agree with that.
Oh, God. I don't know. Like, you have lots of good free agents in this offseason. You have Xmithy.
I think he was better than Broxa this year specifically because
Broxa is a free agent too. If they're
it's fair to disagree. I think just my version of what he like Brox actually pushed to the table was actually 100%. Like, I don't know. I mean, I really have never seen like Broxa have an impact in the early game in comparison to impact. I mean, what's it called? Xmithy, who really didn't have an impact either, but was a lot more proactive. Like, Broxa only have a 1-year contract. I don't know. Actually, I
think he did. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think he did, yeah. Because the issue here is, where would Broxa go? He said he's open to the idea of playing in North America. Where is he going to go? Does he go on TSM? TSM Broxa? That would be so bad. I don't know what to do with TSM either. Like, the rumors for today is nothing's happened so far except the Fnatic rumors, which were, here's what was said. It was the sheep guy, LEC Wulo. He's not exactly 100% confirmed, but, you know, it's just always nice to have these kind of people around that are saying rumors, but always take these things with a grain of salt. So here is the Fnatic rumor that was updated. Update on Fnatic rumors. Hylissang plus Bwipo, staying in addition to Selfmade plus Reckless, is absolute priority for Fnatic. Mid lane change is almost guaranteed. Then he came up with a following tweet. Bwipo is less likely leaving than Hylissang since Hylissang's contract is running out. Apparently, some teams in EU and NA are ready to make big offers to Hylissang. Lastly, it's rumored that Fnatic would have only replaced Bwipo if it was for Alphari. So mid lane change is almost guaranteed from what this person says, and Hylissang's contract is out, but you also can factor in he'll most likely just stay because it's a priority on Fnatic on locking down Bwipo, Hylissang, Selfmade, and Reckless. I think
the only
Selfmade will stay.
Selfmade is obviously staying. I mean, I think the big problem, the reason that Selfmade got onto this team is because of Nemesis, I want to point out. I mean, I think they were like best friends or something, and Nemesis got on him, so I don't know what impact that's going to have on this team now.
Bro, that best friend thing did not reflect in their actual game.
Well, you know what? It doesn't matter. The reason he's on this team is because Selfmade. I mean, he made a very big push to get Selfmade on the team. We're hyper trash. It's not really necessary.
My God, Limit and Trick were so bad.
It's just there weren't really too many good. Like, I didn't really like the reason. Like, at this point in time, you have so much talent inside of the EU Master scene. Why do you need to bring back Trick? What is the reason for this? Like, what consistently getting new rosters like day in and day out, it didn't make any sense to me. Like, I don't know. I don't really have too much problems with like Trick like back when he was good, but I mean, obviously it's been years since that was the case, and it's just he's never made drastic steps to make like actually get back to that point. So I don't really think it's a necessary thing to consistently give him roster points. Like, you have so much talent to be able to get, but at the same time, maybe they need a veteran leadership because then everybody at EU Masters. I mean, I'm just saying, like, he literally didn't have a reason to be on a team. There was no reason. Like, Trick is just somebody that is a residual kind of player left over from like the old previous meta of jungle, and he hasn't really translated into this version of it. Like, I don't see why you'd bring him over. Like, you're not going to get the old Trick because the old Trick wouldn't have succeeded in this one either.
Perks puts a lot of good words out for Trick usually when he talks about him. He says Trick is super underrated by a lot of people, and he said he actually provides a lot. But I don't know.
Perks is a better player than me, so I mean,
he wants some championships with him. So I mean, I can't really say otherwise. But you know, I don't know honestly. Damn, I'm not gonna lie though, guys. Le Tigers actually looks pretty hot. But
shut up.
Oh my God, dude.
I think the biggest roster moves obviously were Bjergsen kind of leaving a big hole in the identity of TSM, and then
Fnatic potentially.
I don't care about Nemesis. Like, they're
honestly, Fnatic always change out their mid laners. I don't know why this is such a new thing.
It's not a new thing. No one's surprised by it. I mean, I think a big thing, like, get a new mid laner. If it works out, if he's not as good as Nemesis, you obviously still have Nemesis on the back throw, so you can put him back in. I mean,
it's not even that. Like, they want someone like Caps again. It's like they want someone like Caps, but that's an anomaly. It's not always going to happen, though.
You know what? I can point out a few things. It was like a Mystique's back in like 2 seasons ago when he got replaced by what's his name again and didn't get to get his starting spot back.
He got replaced.
Like, he was destroying everybody. He like turned this team around. Everybody's like, this is the best support in EU, and then he never played again this season, and I never understood why. Like, I want to know, were there some sort of inner turmoil between the two players?
I heard Mystique is actually going to be on Astralis.
I'd like that. I do think he played really well in the points that he was actually playing in. Astralis support. No, that team is still trash. It doesn't matter.
So
they have. Who is it again? That team was just full of a lot of rejects from the previous like rosters that actually didn't succeed. I don't know why you want to pick. Like, even putting Mystiques in this is just going to ruin his credibility as a player.
Let's go. So you have Peter Dunn as a free agent. Dan is a free agent from Misfits, and Mad Lions has Peter Dunn. Deficio has moved to Astralis. I don't know. Destiny. Oh yeah, Destiny's a free agent.
Okay. No, I don't want to make this comparison of FlyQuest. You know this team is not. There's no potential on this team. On the Astralis team. You heard Astralis is OP in CS:GO. That really does not apply in this situation. I mean, they might be good in CS:GO, but they're not very good at League. And they made, honestly, I feel like this roster specifically was designed to be a solid 10, like, it just be a 10th place team. There's no one that's ever been Astralis over motivation, work, improvement team. I guess. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if they're motivated at all. I mean, none of them looked motivated before. Like, what their team is Promiscu.
All I heard was this Promise Q and Nuke Duck. That already sounds
No,
horrible.
they
That
had a
already sounds
whole roster.
trash.
The old Origin meme, was that really it? I don't know anything about Origin memes. I don't pay attention to that. Like, I did not.
I'm gonna try and find you guys the roster that apparently got leaked by Esports Macau just yesterday, actually. I'm trying to translate the whole freaking tweet. It's so much stuff that goes through Reddit that it's really hard to keep track of every single thing. But after this, we're gonna get to previewing the 2020 World Championship because we have to go through the semifinals first because the semifinals were actually pretty one-sided for G2 versus Damwon, and then you had Suning versus Top as the other less one-sided series. I think that Top underperformed to a lot of people's expectations in terms of what you wanted to see out of Top Esports, but we'll get into that in just a moment. I kind of want to find something really quickly. Okay.
Oh, they got Xerxes upset. Wait, no. We'll be looking for new teams, all three of them. So their roster.
Current roster swaps.
Promise Q. I don't know any of these players, honestly. So, like, all around, we're switching to what again?
Oh, so the 2020 semifinals for Worlds. Esports Macau. I mean, 1 second. Let me move my mic for 1 moment.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty excited for this World Championship. I want to see whether or not it's a 3-0 or not, because I really don't see a world where Suning wins this. Like, I think that's one of the biggest problems. I think Suning has made drastic leaps, but they're still completely outmatched in pretty much every single role. The only reason they won against Top is because Top just looks atrocious right now, shape-wise. They look like they're substantially worse than they were before. Like, I don't know. I mean, I got no problems. With like I really do think SOFM might actually be a better jungler than Canyon, and that's really all I could say. But it's really the only place where I could see them winning out at. Now, where'd you go? Did you leave me?
No, I was checking out something super quickly.
I mean, that's really the only place. Do you think there's any? Do you think it's gonna be a 3-0?
All right, so let's do the semifinals first.
Oh, you want to talk about?
You want to talk about G2? This guy wants to rag on G2. I mean,
I'm not gonna rag on them.
So Damwon played up against G2 this past weekend, and it was pretty one-sided. Like,
grab water real quick.
Like, so even in the game against Damwon that they did end up winning, I actually thought that G2 played pretty poorly. Like, overall for this year for G2, I think people will normally just tunnel on the fact that they played pretty good overall at certain points, but I don't think this G2 roster ever hit the highs that last year's G2 roster actually hit. And there's so many different factors into overall breaking that down, because you got to consistently think about this. You know, how they beat SKT, in my own personal opinion, was that they had a chance to play up against Damwon, which kind of warmed them up to play against SKT again in the rematch they had last year at the 2019 World Championship. Now, you had it where they faced Gen G in the quarterfinals this year, and Gen G didn't pretty much do anything. Like, Gen G were actually just sitting there mentally imploding, and right after that, they faced up against a better Korean team that were going to punish all their mistakes, and they didn't really know what to do. I think that if you look at the roster going, you know, top to bot, I personally think that Wonder played pretty okay. Jankos had his worst world so far. Caps played good in the Gen G series, and he played good in some of their games in the group stage. Then you also had Perks and Mickey X. I think Mickey X was the best player on G2 by far. I think he was the standout player. I think that Perks was serviceable and showed that he could play ADCs to a average extent. But other than that, I think this G2 iteration that we had this year, it's the same iteration, but obviously for their Season 10 performance, it was marginally worse compared to their last year performance, and that was partly due to the fact that the meta change, flex picks weren't really that good in terms of actually doing them because they lost. It's hard to say. It's because of how Riot actually did the patch updates for season 10 about how you flex certain champions into other roles. But other than that, I didn't predict G2 to win. It wasn't because I don't like them. It's like I knew Damwon were stronger. You know, I knew last year that G2 had things that could take down Damwon and SKT for a fact from watching all their games and watching Damwon and SKT as well. That's why I was so gung-ho on my predictions last year. The reason why G2 could actually win and go over to the finals, they were really strong. Like, they were generally a really, really strong team. This year, I was like, Damwon is a little too strong here. And then Gen.G did not punish anything G2 did. Nothing. They just walked out there and just were like, you know what? Mouse and keyboard. All right, leagues up. Ban champion select. All right, walk up, lose, get off the stage. Literally, that's how they played. They were already mentally broken before the freaking series started.
I mean, I want to point out Gen.G 100% just misexecuted everything they did. Like, they actually, if you look at the game one, I think the worst problem, if you see it, like, actually the Tark engage in game one towards the 25-minute mark. He goes in there, gets himself killed. Tark doesn't even get his ult on him. So now they're left in the middle of the gate in like the open with no Tark ultimate, and they're kind of stuck in the middle of everything. They get killed off like right there. Like, Gen.G is a better team than they played in that series. I do think G2 probably would have won regardless. But like, they should not have lost to the extent they did. They get in their heads too often. They have a lot of talent on that team that they really didn't play around. I think the BDD just stuck in lane way too often, and they just didn't play cohesively like a team. But Damwon is like, I think G2 came in with the right mindset. I want to point out they did not come in here with a bad mindset. That's the one thing I'll give credit to G2. I think pick and ban phase-wise and grasp of the meta-wise, they look a lot better this year than they did last year. Just mechanically, they're a worse team. I think that's one of the biggest problems with G2 is the fact that a lot of their players are underperforming. But again, I think one big problem is the fact that the meta shift with Ketchup XP being nerfed drastically. I think it really shifted how Jankos can actually play the game, and I think maybe that was a big reason as to why he didn't succeed, but I don't know if that's 100% it. Like, one big problem I have with like the series, like how it went right now, is like we look at game one, I think that Damwon just kind of like Leona just kind of ran all over them, and the support really took over the game. They really should have. They took that into consideration game two. They picked the Leona away, and they really 100% almost threw it away like 3 times, like with overextensions in the mid lane after a dragon thing. They got caught out a few times, but they really did. There was early game skirmishes and mid game skirmishes are 100% how you beat Damwon. They understood that. They picked away one of the more engage heavy supports in the game with a lot of like base resistances, and they were able to like kind of push the pace of the game to the point where Damwon will always react to what they're doing. They're a reactionary team at this point, and they'll try and kind of stem the flow of what you're able to push. In game 3, I think one of the biggest problems with this game, if you look at the dive in bot lane, was absolutely terrible. Like it was so mis-executed. He got a double kill when they tried to dive him, and that's just not something you can you reasonably should let happen. But I think the biggest problem with this series is Perkz being completely outmatched in bot lane. I think he was the biggest liability in the entire series. He was so completely demolished by Ghost in terms of just every aspect that it really just left, like they really had to focus like kind of resources into the bot lane. They were going to lose. Like another one was like in game 2, they focused the top lane, which was moderately decent. Again, he was on Fiora, which kind of like if you put Fiora behind, she's inevitably going to be ineffective because she can only 1-3-1. She has no ability to team fight at this point, and she's not even that good in side lanes now. Like the Pantheon in game 3, I think was actually okay at the very start, and then like that's actually a very common trend inside of supports this season. I think that again, I think that Mickey X played poorly that game, but I think a very common trend inside of supports. If we look at Sword Art getting caught out inside of the Suning games, if we look at Hillisang being hit or miss the entire year, if we look at that specific game, we see a lot of supports being forced to be the primary engages in the early game, and it kind of really does reflect poorly on them because they have to put themselves in weird situations, and hopefully like they try, like it looked, if you actually look, it's something uncommon for them to actually ward in that position. So it's really surprising that Damwon was able to catch him out. Like that was actually pretty impressive on their part to kind of switch that up. And I was actually surprised G2 was able to take advantage of that, like kind of acknowledge that, like that they weren't actually warding in that specific position inside of the pixel brush. But they actually did it that time. He got caught out. Hillisang shows up when like no one else on Fnatic shows up, and that's one of the most unfortunate aspects of it. When no one else shows up, he kind of like tries to bring him back to that, like from the brink, and that actually usually works out. But like support is the most important aspect in every game engages. I think that Game 3, the problem 100% was mismanagement of tower aggro and the tower dive. That was not on Pantheon's. It was slightly on Pantheon. Pantheon misplaced a Z and he took the tower shot. Like, all around, I think G2 had a good mindset going into the series. They misplayed a few things, but again, when you're against a team that is so much better than you, like mechanically and all this stuff, you kind of really, it's hard. If you don't play it perfectly, you're bound to make mistakes because you have to push the tempo past what you're capable of doing. Like, I think I really did like G2's like stance towards it, but they were severely outmatched. Like, they got figured out by Game 3, and Game 4 was just atrocious. Like, somebody should have went in there and stopped the Shelly. She should not have been able to get off so many charges. That was just kind of crazy to me. Like,
okay, so for me, even in the game that they won, I was like, they're not going to win the series. Like, if you looked at the game they won, that was so much less favored into, like, the game they won did not give me hope for them winning the series. Because the fact of the matter is that they were also on the back foot in the game they won. What really threw the tip in the favor was, what was the play? They did some play in the on Damwon's side, and they managed to get a couple picks, and they got Baron from that. So, like, watching the series, it was so one-sided, and I think people now understand why we had Damwon as the best team coming into the event. Hey, if you had Top Esports better, more power to you. That wasn't a bad choice. But I think if you looked at them both objectively, without bias coming in, you could see Damwon was the better team.
I mean,
I really saw they were better.
I think specifically if Top was at their form with all of the players playing properly, I think that their skirmish-based kind of thing matched perfectly against Damwon. The problem is that Damwon is the perfect team right now. They essentially, one thing that you actually can say about Damwon is the fact that when you see their comp, you know exactly how they're going to play. Whether or not you're able to stop them from doing what they're going to do, I think one big thing about it is when they get Renekton, usually around level 6, they almost consistently, it's like almost a 90% chance they die the top lane at that point in time. Mm-hmm. Like, it's always a consistent way they play the game, and a lot of people can't react to that because, again, the individual plays so well that they can play standardized and you can't do anything about it. Like, I do think that's one big, like, quality that Damwon actually will be punished with in the future, like, seasons. Not this season because no one's good enough to, but, like, if this team was, like, in season, like, not like 12 and there was, like, another team is capable of them, they went into the game, they know exactly how Damwon is going to play, and that's one flaw in their game plan. But at the same time, individual talent is what makes the difference. There's really nothing you can do because if you gank the top side, the bot side's winning. If you gank mid, it doesn't matter. Mid's still winning, and so is top. Like, there's not really much you can do besides force skirmishes in the early game and try and build up gold leads. Because if you build up gold leads, it doesn't matter who's better, because an IE against a Stormrazor IE Caitlyn is always going to beat a Bork Ashe. Like, there's not much difference in that. Like, I mean, there's not much you can do about it, no matter how much better you are than him. But,
so, pretty much wrapping it up for G2 versus Damwon, there was a person, he made this meme. Like, you know how Fnatic had the first reverse sweep at Worlds and G2 losing in the fastest game in Worlds history? Europe breaking the records in all the wrong places.
You know what they broke?
Oh my God.
You know what NA didn't break, though? NA didn't break the barrier into getting out of groups, so I guess we really can't trash talk.
But overall for G2, I don't know what they're going to do with the roster moving forward. Like, I like all the players, but you got to factor in, like, Cap, you know Perks wants to play mid lane. Like, you know he doesn't like playing ADC. You know, he let Perks play mid because obviously Cap is just a better player. But now you're looking at it in a hindsight of, wait a minute, if G2's thinking, wait a minute, if we have Caps, why would we ever want to replace him? Like, Caps is the best mid laner in Europe and one of the best mid laners of all time, going after his performance against Gen G in the West. Like, why do you replace him?
Is
Like
there a world where Perks goes to CS? A world I don't want to live in. I don't want to live in that world where
that
Perks
reality is
leaves
horrible.
G2 and goes to TSM. That would just make it would be a great addition. I think that would really give them an extremely good grasp. Like honestly, Perks would be the perfect addition to this team. Whether or not they're gonna do that is probably unlikely. I'd be sad if that happened, and I think a lot of people would be upset about it. But again, from what I've seen, a lot of the strengths of G2 has always been the shot calling in the mid game, and that's one of the biggest problems they've always had. Yeah, Yanko's at the moment. Who is better in the West? I mean, I think the thing about it is the success of G2 has always came from shot calling and Yankos. Without Yankos on this team never made finals. Like in my opinion, I don't think this team ever made finals without Yankos on this team. So I think that's one big problem is that you really do need to give him a chance to bounce back because the drastic change in how the league was played this season because of reduced catch-up XP is something that really is a hard thing to adjust to. So I think it's really something I would kind of hold off on whether or not I'd actually get rid of him because again, this is the single most integral part to G2 has always been Yankos. He's been the most important aspect of it. He's always been the identity when he's been on this team. Like,
will Perks be staying as ADC? All right, so the other rumor I wanted to bring up was that there could be a potential trade that Perks goes to Fnatic on a loan.
That would be incredible. That would be actually incredible. Fnatic.
You know what? That's not. I love Perks. Perks is one of my favorite players ever, but that's not bad. That's not bad though.
If he's loaning them, it's like when I mean, honestly, he's willingly doing this to make EU as a whole better. Like that's an incredibly good Fnatic, and that's an incredibly good G2 who gets an upgraded ADC. You have two worlds contending teams if you do that, in my opinion.
Like you already have two worlds contending teams right now in their current forms, and now you just got better teams. I mean, Fnatic and G2 always make top 8, and they're always making top 4.
Yeah, but like contending is like, man, they might be able to win this year. That's contending. That's like G2.
Hey,
Fnatic,
they made the finals in those years, though. I'm just saying, though.
I never believed in them, though. Like,
of course, why would you believe in them? I only believed in G2 because I really thought they could have beat FPX, but well, I woke up at 5 a.m. and saw them get smashed. So yeah, they're never gonna put myself through that again. But Fnatic, I knew Fnatic weren't gonna beat IG. I knew they weren't.
Just think about this. After every win and loss, the first person you see is Perk smiling, and everybody else kind of looks at him and smiles afterwards. Caps was not smiling after that last series. He was very upset. Like, if you look at the...
he played pretty bad. He played pretty bad.
Everybody's going to play bad against Showmaker, man. Like, you're not Chovy. You're not going to play that well. It's just...
I mean, but Caps is good, though.
Caps is not good enough to play against him.
I think Caps, if you give him certain champions, he can perform really well. Like, yeah,
he can never... The reason that I think Caps will never be able to play against the mid laner on a consistent standard is because mechanically he's worse than most of them. He's worse than BDD mechanically. He's worse than what's called. The reason that he's able to stand out is because he's able to play more impactful roaming champions. And EU as a whole really does have a good grasp of skirmish-based like team comps. But he's not a better mid laner than most of them. I think he plays a good standard kind of idea, like the way he plays around the map is really strong. But like mechanically he's worse than all of them, and that's why he can't play these assassins and all this stuff, is because he really does struggle when it comes to that. And I know his Akali game was unfortunate. They got a Mountain Drake and a Lulu, but at the same time, like if you look at the mid game skirmish inside of Baron Pit, he just missed a shuriken that missed out on a lot of DPS on one of the characters. And like, I agree with that. I think without Perks, we're going to see whether or not this team can actually hold it together mentally, because that's one of the strongest points.
Or you have where Fnatic takes Caps on a loan again. Caps plays for Fnatic again.
Caps is not coming back if he goes there.
I don't know. He literally said he did not want to go back because they're unwilling to change things.
That was seasons ago. They changed things already.
I mean, no. Unwilling to change things in terms of play style. Like, people didn't want to play certain champions. They didn't want to play around the map effectively a certain play.
I think this is a completely different ideology on what Fnatic plays now. They play a lot of different things. G2 could flex pick Lucian mid. In game one, G2 could flex pick Lucian mid. I agree with that. I mean, that's true. But, I mean, G2, Lucian's just a horrible ADC right now. He provides no utility. He scales worse than the utility ADCs. Like, all he is a lane bully, and lane sustain utility ADCs don't get bullied out because they can pretty much just survive through all the burst you can do. Like, he doesn't kill Senna because Senna can heal through most of his damage. You don't kill Callista because Callista wins the lane against him. You don't beat what's it called? You don't beat Ashe because Ashe outranges him. Like you can't play at Lucian as an ADC right now. That's the big problem with that.
And now it's time to move on to the Top Esports versus Suning series. So thank you, Suning. You ruined my pick'ems because if Top Esports won, I would have got every prediction correct except for one. Now I've gotten 2 wrong. But I can still get Damwon beating out Suning because I think an issue with Suning I had was that their drafting phase is really questionable. They weren't like flexing picks. It's a lot to break down for like the casuals, but what I saw in their drafting phase was that they couldn't really flex certain picks, and they were just willing to ban out the OP picks that they knew they couldn't play properly. And what I also saw, Sword Art get like some questionable plays in the series. SOFM was pretty good. Huangfeng was pretty good. Ben played pretty good. Ben showed me the Jax pick, which I thought was really, really incredible. Top Esports, they've been playing, like, I don't know. They just did not perform up to the standard that I think a lot of people held them. Like, okay, so we held Damwon to the standard that most people hold Top Esports to. Is that a fair comparison?
I didn't hold them in the same standard, to be fair, but yeah.
No, but yeah, like how we hold Damwon is the same way people held Top, and I don't think they didn't show it at all this tournament. They showed moments of it. I'm not saying they never did. Top, I think they showed moments of them being the best.
They never played to the standard that they played at in LPL, and that's just the reality.
But you gotta people need to factor this in. It is their their real first legit international event. Yuyanja's first international event. 369's like these things play into how these teams perform. The pressure of them
I think
doing
it
well.
really 100% did. They all played under their standard. Mechanical.
The Chinese community definitely eats them alive if they play bad. People gotta factor this in. Like there's pressure on these people and their first world championship and their real first international competition. As I always said, some players crack under it, some players don't. It just depends on the player. Depends how old they are. Depends on their role. Like Yuyanja.
Yuyanja didn't crack. He was bad in the LPL.
No. This man's borderline inting. Remember the Karma game against Fnatic? Remember the Karma game against Fnatic where he could block a skill shot so Jackalov doesn't die, and he Karma speeds up and runs away?
He was pretty bad. He was the weakest point in what's it called, inside of the LPL too. I mean, I think that's a big thing you could say.
Why can't Top Esports get Mako? I think Mako would be a great upgrade for them.
Because Mako is pretty decent, I agree.
If you want a shot caller, hey, that's the person you need. Get Mako.
I don't know if shot calling was the big problem. I think they just needed a better support. Like they were actually trying. They wanted PP God, who is actually it would have been an insane upgrade for this team. He's the support for Victory 5. Top support. The reason they didn't do it is because FPX actually had him. They were giving him away because they just didn't want him on their starting roster, and they purposefully didn't give him to Top Esports because they didn't want them to be good. Which actually, he was the single best player on Victory 5 and actually turned this team around. Like, I know Mole was good too, but for the most part, I think that, what's his name? I think that PP God was definitely the best player on that team.
Also for Suning, I personally think that some of the things they actually do were in partly because Top failed so much at it. Like Top in game, like they failed a lot of things in that series.
You could say that, but I do think a lot of it was because of the pressure that Suning actually output in terms of just skirmishes. They were able to do that. I mean, you're not going to see a lot of teams that are able to out-mechanic them. I mean, even on like Knight's bad days, you're not going to see too many players push them to the point where Knight's going to make those like bad mechanical decisions.
I think Angel did really well, better than I thought he would up against Knight. He
was the second best mid laner at this tournament, maybe.
Pretty much, yeah.
Second best mid laner at this tournament.
If Selfmade didn't get knocked out the previous week, I thought Selfmade was one of the best junglers at the event. Maybe top 3, actually.
Let's think. He was worse than SOFM. He was worse than Canyon. He was. Let me think if there was anybody else.
Everyone else, I'm pretty sure.
He was worse than Karsa. He was worse than Karsa.
Not from those first games. Not from those first games.
You could say whatever you want, but Karsa all around was probably better than him. Selfmade was pretty solid in a lot of aspects, but again, I think a lot of the reason as to why they weren't able to win that series was because of the fact that they relied on Hillising too much. Like, I don't know.
I personally think Selfmade was...
The reason they lost to stupid Top Esports is because Selfmade actually got destroyed by Karsa. Like, Karsa actually completely outplayed him, and they lost that series.
First games, didn't Selfmade just outplay him?
No, it was not pressure around the map. Karsa, 100%. The reason they started losing is because Karsa actually started pulling out carry picks and they actually tried to play standard against them instead of trying to skirmish like they're supposed to. Like, which is actually the weakness of top esports. They just tried to play standard against them. Karsa 100% took over all 3 of the last of the games. I don't even think it's relatively close between those two, to be honest. I think that once we saw the difference between them on carry junglers, we saw the actual difference between the players themselves. Like, Karsa was substantially better than, like, even most of the tournament too. But, like, again, the big reason they lost their specific series is because Karsa jungle gapped them so hard in the last 3 games.
All right. We should just agree to disagree.
How can you disagree with that?
I don't think Karsa was that good overall.
Karsa literally straight up manhandled it in game 3. The reason they turned it around is because Karsa straight up killed him like 60 times, solo killed. Then Selfmade in game 4, game 4, Selfmade got caught out 60 times and they lost that game off him.
And then against SOFM, when he played against someone different, he got blasted because if he's not playing Lee Sin, he doesn't look that good.
Because SFM is the best jungler in the world. That's why.
Okay, it's just fanboying. When Canyon,
no, it's just a fact.
When Canyon destroys him next week, I want to see the salt just pour down. Right?
No,
when Canyon rips his soul out.
I think that they're going to do that, but I think it's mostly because
that's the thing. Because for the top esports series, I predicted top to win, but like
I actually thought I actually when I realized that you could actually swap out the semis, that's when I should have done it. I actually did expect Suning to be able to beat this.
Yeah, like I didn't know you could do that. I never knew you could do that. If I knew that, I was gonna be like, freak, crap.
I think no. I'm just saying, like, I don't think that Selfmade was a top 3 jungler. I think he was the best Western jungler by far, though. I think that's undeniable.
I think that when you look at how top esports are playing, Jackula made a lot of mistakes, flashing over aggressively, dying consistently. Yuyanja doing his best freaking Kiwi Kid impressions to run it down.
Just like the best player on this entire series, on this team right now, the reason they were able to do so well was Karsa.
I was gonna say 369.
369 got top gaps in their series.
Like, yeah, against Bin, another great top laner. I'm just saying.
He's better than Bin, though. I mean, he's better than Bin. I mean, I think most of the year he's been better than Bin. Like, it's just unfortunate that he wasn't in this specific worlds. Like, I think that we saw Karsa being like pretty much the only reason they were able to come back in their first series against Fnatic, and then everybody else turned it back online. Knight 100% gapped, like Nemesis by the end of the series. I think there's a lot of things to put into this, but like all around, I think that top esports really struggled against against Suning, because again, the skirmish based kind of play style that they actually struggled against Fnatic, that they actually for some reason Fnatic stopped playing that. That is the basis of Suning's playstyle. They always skirmish-based kind of force fights around objectives, and that's really something that top esports struggles with. They try and push the tempo, and they don't want to give up objectives, but when you actually try and do that against a team that's really kind of centralized about this is their specialty, you're really going to struggle a little bit. The LCK side of quarters and semis is very predictable, true. Are you talking about I actually think every single one of the games win is predicted. I mean, I think every single one of the games you could expect. I expected a 3-0.
Every single group stage went almost as predicted.
Well, yeah. I think everything, but maybe the Suning series is...
Everything except for Suning was predicted correctly. And obviously Rogue not getting third in their group, essentially. That's pretty much it. Everything is pretty much correct how the worlds went. Team Liquid not making it out. FlyQuest not making it out. The Korean and Chinese teams being on top. NA performing bad. Suning is the only X factor into the quarterfinals. Because, like, if you watch the LPL all year, like I did, I never thought Suning could even beat JDG in a best of 5. JDG, we're so close to winning back-to-back splits. But JDG performed really bad at Worlds, so I should have taken into consideration Suning played more recently better. And I saw JDG playing really bad, and I should have just went with Suning. But hindsight's a bitch.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I mean, the thing about it is, again, you could reasonably say that best of 5s are a big difference between the best of 1s. But the big thing I want to say about Suning and the reason they were able to turn it back on is obviously 100% factored into the fact that the bot lane actually completely kind of transformed itself coming into Worlds. They play a lot better than they did at specifically inside of China, and I've really been appreciative of their level of play. It's really made them a step up from what they were. And it's really kind of transformed a team, like inside of a meta that's kind of centralized around jungle and support pressure in the early game. It's really, with the step of a Sword Art, it's really made them another tier level of the team. But at the same time, I think that I don't think they would have beat top esports if Top Esports had not had so many underperformances. I think that JDG had a lot of weaknesses inside of their drafting phase because what's his name in the mid lane? I always forget his name. I always mix him. Whatever it was.
GDG support?
No, it's mid laner. Mid laner.
Oh, Yugao.
Yeah. Yugao is so limited inside his Zoe pick. You can play Zoe, LeBlanc, and all these stuff, and always perfect in predictions. So what can I say? There are 12 people that are perfect so far.
Dude, I would have been perfect in the quarterfinals if I just believed in Suning. I saw them playing good.
If I just completely disregarded the fact that I thought both of these teams were going to win, then I would have been right. No.
Yeah.
Reasonable reasons as to why you guessed these
recency bias. Well, sometimes you got to go with that recency bias.
Yeah, but
it does work.
It does work sometimes, but sometimes it doesn't work.
Hey, you never. That's how life is. You got to take some chances. You don't want to. Like, nothing is ever going to go 100% correct. Take some fun. Have some fun predicting it.
I'm just saying, you had some fun, right? Or are you saying you didn't?
I did have fun. My fun was getting down to the finals. So at least.
I'm just saying. I think all around. I think everybody expected. Like again, everybody's. Like there was reasonable reasons to think why JDG could have beat Suning. Suning, again, JDG looked a lot better, specifically in recency, like against Suning. Like not really. I mean, Top was the one that beat them, but at the same time, like it's like the team that 3-0'd them barely was able to pull out a 3-2 victory against JDG. It looks like obviously like JDG stepped it up by the playoff series and were able to start consistently 3-0ing a lot of teams that were performing a little bit better than them in the playoffs. I mean, in the regular season. Like it's not unreasonable for all these things. I think a lot of these teams, were like the question for the final will be how Damwon can dismantle Suning.
Well, that leads into the final topic. This is the last match of World of the year, guys. World's 2020 Finals preview. This is the last match of the year of this terrible, terrible year we had to live in. Holy crap! I want to blow my brains out.
I want to point out the big thing about this is the fact that mechanically. I think that they match up a lot better against this Damwon roster than G2 did, and that was one of the bigger problems as to why G2 couldn't pull out a victory against them. Was the fact that G2 100% had the right mindset, but weren't able to mechanically pull off a lot of the stuff to consistently push the advantages that they had. I think that Damwon is probably going to win the series, and I think it might be a pretty good big stomp. But again. There are weaknesses that can be exposed by Suning, and Suning is the perfect team to be able to do this. This is the best.
I think if there's a team that could bring Damwon to 5 games, I think it'd be Suning. But overall, I think it's going to be a 3-1 or a 3-0 for Damwon. I don't really see a realistic world where Suning can beat them, only because their drafting phase is really questionable about what picks they give up from what I saw. And then you also got to factor in Showmaker is just a little bit better than Angel.
It's not a little bit. It's a very
Naguri is a little every player on Damwon is just a little bit more better than the counterparts on Suning, if not way better. And that makes the difference though. If Suning were playing up against a G2 in the final, Suning would win.
Right? I'm just saying you're saying that everybody, and I don't agree with that specific aspect. I mean, I don't think Canyon is better than SOFM. I don't think that.
He definitely can match him and beat him. That's the thing, though.
It can, but I don't think it's better. I think that also I don't think Ghost is really that much better than Huangfan, if at all.
I don't know. I think if you make comparisons, you have comparisons, and then the people on Suning can not only match people on Damwon side, it's also nothing they're going to get super advantages over. So, I don't think SOFM is going to massively jungle gap Canyon. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't think it's going to happen, but again, the specific playstyle that Damwon struggles against is the identity of Suning. And I do want to take that in consideration. I think if any team is going to be able to beat them, it is 100% going to be Suning.
No way. They're the last 2 teams.
Well, no, I'm just saying if any team, again, if G2 had made the finals over Suning and they had beat Suning, I'd be like, this is not the perfect. If Suning can do it, it's most likely not going to be G2. But again, Suning is better than G2 at the playstyle that they have, and I really do think this is going to be the difference for these 2 teams. Is the fact that, again, I think Damwon just showed that they can play multiple styles and just their opponent. I mean, I think that, I just think that G2 was just outmatched. I mean, I'm not surprised. It wasn't even full adjustments. I mean, there were slight different adjustments, but for the most part. They kind of ran back comps against them, and they were doing the same stuff. They just took away the Leona from them in game 2, and that was a big thing. But for the most part, they just didn't have an answer to Ashe. They didn't have an answer to Ghost, and they could never match him. Like that was.
I personally think this series goes into the same reason why people thought that G2 were really strong based off the Gen G series, was that G2 smacked around Gen G. They weren't challenged in that series. And now you see the same thing with this series. The Damwon smacked around G2 and they weren't challenged at all. But the issue here is, looking at Damwon overall for the tournament, they haven't really lost it. They've only lost 2 games, one in the group stage and one now. They've pretty much been stomping everybody. So I just don't think Suning is going to be the X factor. Like, everyone on Damwon can match players on Suning and are in some ways better. I just don't see a world in which where Suning
I think
really has that X
everyone's
factor.
in some ways better.
Suning played one style, essentially.
One style that Damwon has shown to struggle against throughout the entire season.
But if Damwon pull out one of their styles that Suning is not good against, that's where you have that.
I mean, I don't know if they again. The reason that Damwon is probably going to win is because of the fact that they're a reactionary team that's able to adapt to specific comps, and they always know how to design comps against that. They don't really change the way they play. They are if you play fast-paced, we're going to react to that. If you play slow-paced, we're just going to play the game, and we're going to start getting, what's it called, when we get the gold built up. Like, I don't know if it's anything to do with anything about, like, that aspect of it. I don't think they're going to, like, change their playstyle drastically for Damwon, because Damwon is just very standardized. They are by the books. They're very completely, like, you know what they're going to do. And that's one big thing about Damwon. Like, you just can't stop them when they do it. They just play everything so perfectly. But I think one big problem I have with the one big thing that I think they're actually going to struggle with is they were losing around the map a little bit, but again, Bot always brought it back because Perks got completely outmatched by Ghost. Like, Ghost actually just destroyed him. Like, in one of the top dives, they actually got a little bit of a gold lead in the top lane, and then Perks tower dove Ghost and died. And Ghost, like, it's actually just incredible. Like, it happened like 2 times, and the 3rd time he finally killed him, but he died for it too.
It's just that, to me, I think that not even just player-wise, they can match them and be better. It's just how they actually play the map.
That's honestly just not true. Like,
Suning were on the back foot in the top series. At some points, and top just threw it away at multiple different dragon fights. Dragon fights, they threw it away.
If you actually saw what actually happened during those fights, there was a lot of, like, individual outplays on that point in time. They actually were able to secure vision before they actually came. What's it called? And then they actually.
I will say this. Ben is better at playing the 1-3-1 style than Naguri is, but how far is that going to go?
I'm just saying, I think Damwon is probably going to 3-0 to 3-1. But at the same time, if they're able to win this series, it's not like the most surprising thing in the world to me, because at the same time, a comp that a style that Damwon has never really shown to be strong against. Again, a lot of these games went a little bit differently if Ghost was on the enemy team. If Ghost was on the enemy team, there would have been a lot of different situations where we saw Damwon struggle a little bit more, because again, Ghost is actually laning so well, and that's what would have been one of the biggest problems. They've actually have not faced a good bot lane this entire series, like this entire
Worlds.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Deft versus Kiri was like a good one, but like Deft was not playing that well this entire world, so can't really.
Oh my god, yeah, I felt bad. He played pretty bad.
He has a herniated disc. I don't even know. Like, most people say you can't even sit for a year and a half afterwards, so I was just surprised he's even playing. But like, I think all around I've been really like kind of saying that there's not much you could say about, like, he hasn't faced a good top lane, or they haven't faced a good bot lane. This is gonna be the first time where I think there's a lot. This is the most equalized player skill wise they're gonna be. And again, whether or not that matters is probably not going to be the case. I want Damwon to win. I think they are the more deserving of the teams. I think they're a better team in general. But can the Suning bot lane challenge Damwon's bot lane? I mean, I think that Huangfang is extremely good. But the problem is Burial.
I think the challenge comes in the support factor, because Sordar is, to me, looking pretty suspect in a lot of things he does.
That's because you're stupid.
This man doesn't see flaws. This man will never see a flaw in person.
Saying that Sordar isn't a top laner support at this tournament, Burial is probably the second best to first best support, and I'll give him that. But at the same time, like, Sordar is definitely close to him in skill level, and he's been extremely good so far this entire tournament, and he's been one of the key deciding points of this team. The problem is Burial is just a better version of him, and that's going to be the biggest problem with this.
Oh, no, man. This guy's been doing his best to run it down at some
You're really pointing out specific aspects of him.
It's not even just aspects. He's literally
this is a big... This is actually...
He forces consistent things, though, that doesn't get punished at all.
I mean, it does get punished a lot. I mean, the reason that these don't get punished is because early game skirmishes with the amount of items, they're really drawn out, so it's just a numbers advantage. So he's always there before the enemy team. He has a lot of impact because his supports have the highest CC to damage ratio in the game in the early first 5, 1 through 5 levels, so it's really hard to play against them. Like, I think that he's just been moving around the map a lot, like really effectively. But the point is, when you see him get caught out, all these things pop in your head, like, wow, he's playing terrible. But his bard gameplay in some of the games were actually just straight up carrying them inside of the group stages. Like, he's been absolutely incredible. Like, this Worlds, I really don't want to disrespect him because he's probably been one of the best players on this team so far this Worlds. Like, I think that they've all been playing substantially above their pay grade recently, and I just think this is like I think that all around.
SOFM would probably get a $2 million contract.
Yeah, I mean, I think an A team needs to look at him at this point. Just who cares if he doesn't speak English?
Oh my god. That's pretty much it for the World 2020 15,000. I'm just kidding, guys. Sorry. So the World 2020 Championship Finals is going underway on Sunday. This is the last series of the year. This year's been terrible. This year has been terrible for a lot of things anywhere in the world related. But
what is this?
What?
See this? Whippo and Hylissang going to Misfits rumored?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about that.
Some teams want Whippo and Hylissang as a duo to come over. But Fnatic want them as well. They want them to stay. So
why is this even here? It says it's a rumor of Neon going from leaving Schalke to go to Schalke. Like, why is this in this section?
Because he might resign, I'm pretty sure. Right?
I'm guessing.
So, yeah, overall, guys, I had Down 1 winning the series 3-1. I think that Suning might win Game 1. If Suning win Game 1, hey, the momentum might build up, and they might actually win another game. But I'm not opposed to the series going to 5 games. I just think it's very, very unlikely. I think Damwon, at worst, will 3-1, 3-0 stop them. As I've already laid out my arguments before, I think Damwon have the players to match every single Suning player, and I think their multiple playstyles is going to be more effective than Suning's one playstyle. But if Suning can show me something differently in the series, I think they'll have a shot. But overall, I think this is Korea winning their
It's obvious that,
title.
Like, Suning is the second best team at Worlds. So they're playing the better.
Crazy. The third best Chinese team ended up being the second best team at the World Championship. That's great. Oh, the LPL is so much further ahead than everyone else.
They're not better than, I mean, not than LCK. I think it's very comparable. I mean, the thing about it is, if we want to say that do you think the LPL is better than the LCK? Because if you want to say that, I think they need to win a championship without having to.
If they win this Worlds, then it's comparable.
I'm just saying, every championship they've had so far, their 2 best players have been Korean. I think
That's
at least
fine.
2 of their players.
No, I mean that shows
I'm not
that,
disagreeing with that.
but that shows that if your domestic talent is on point, then imports just give you that edge.
I'm just saying that, yeah, LCK doesn't import. I'm just saying,
and I don't really count that for IG though. Come on, these guys have been playing there for like years before that.
Yeah, but Rookie was
that does
literally
not
from,
count.
Rookie was from KT.
I know, but he literally played with IG for years though.
Yeah, but he was KT, and he's been a world-class player since then. And what's his name?
The Shy.
Shy has been playing in Korean solo queue mass amount of time. Like, he wasn't even a pro player until season 8. So, like, I mean, I'm not trying to trash talk. Again, I'm not trying to say that, but I also literally trashed LCK, though. I mean, Dragon X would have matched up well against everybody else. Again, pretty much in scrims, everybody says that by far and away the best bot lane and best kind of duo inside of the all the what's it called was Death and Kiri.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then again, I think that's one of the bigger problems I have is that the fact that Dragon X matched up against Damwon in the first series, I really do think they would have played well against everybody else.
They could have made. I mean, if the worlds were shifted, there was a possible shot that Dragon X could have gone a little bit more further because they weren't bad in the group stage. I don't think the group stage was. I don't think their series against Damwon was a big indicator as what they could have been.
Yeah, I think they played really well this Worlds. They really changed up their play styles. They just didn't know how to play against Damwon, and that's just understandable. No one does right now. Like, I think.
Thank you, Ryan. I like that. LPL is like Game of Thrones.
The thing about it is, until anybody can match the output at which talent, like the talent that the LCK brings, I think it's hard to dethrone them as number 1. And I think they've been substantially outputting the most talent out of every other region so far. So it's like, That is one
But
big
it's
thing.
hard to say. There's a lot of good Chinese players on
There
bad
are good
teams,
Chinese
though.
players, but there are, again, the most successful players in China are usually the Koreans. Like,
It's not necessarily that. They're also successful because they have good domestic talent, too, though.
But again, they wouldn't have won with the Shy and Rookie were the big reasons with the IG in Season 8. Season 9 was Doing B and Gimgoon were both Korean.
No, Kim Goon. I don't know about
Gimgoon was a very
just Doi B Tien is what helped them out.
No. Yeah, but a moderately good or pretty decently good weak side top laner that was really good at team fighting in terms of just how he played. It was a very big aspect of that team.
No, I think their biggest aspect was mid jungle synergy. That's what brought out the mid jungle synergy.
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't think anybody disagrees with that.
I don't think Gimgoon provided much. That's why they swapped him with Khan, because they knew he wasn't that good.
Yeah, but when they brought him back in,
they
brought him back in, they started winning again. Like, I think it's hard to say that Gimgoon wasn't. I mean, you could have put Impact in there, and I think they would have been pretty decent still. But at the same time,
let's not go crazy here.
Wait, I'm just saying, you needed a weak side top laner, and I think that Gimgoon provided it. They're not really too many of those inside of the LPL. I think Flandria would have been better, obviously.
Perks will not play AD carry next year. Like, I mean, I don't think that's a rumor right there is what you put. Because we know, you can tell on his face he doesn't want to play ADC, but by the way he talks about playing ADC. But, like, that's the problem with G2 right now is, I brought this up, I think about G2 when they first announced this, before I think we even had a channel, is that, I brought up to, like, these guys, my friends, right, is that this is going to have a possibility, like, yeah, you're going to have your honeymoon phase of winning, but at a certain point when they don't win and they're in off season, what do you do? Like, Perks doesn't really want to play ADC, like the way he talks about it, the way he just wants to go back to mid. But Caps is better than Perks, though. So if you're G2, you're like, you love Perks, but if Caps is better than Perks, why do you want to get rid of Caps? And if you give away Caps, you make someone else significantly better. That's the problem.
If Perks is the shot caller, I think it would be a better idea to keep him instead of Caps.
But Caps has the raw carry potential that you might need.
Yeah, but shot calling is more important. I mean, I think that's obviously, we've seen that. I mean, the raw carry potential, we had a lot of that in TSM. None of them could do it because they fell apart in the first 3 minutes of the game.
First 3 minutes? They were dumb when they loaded up in a champion select. What?
I'm a little scared of stupid. Are you excited for the new changes on Annie?
Annie's
going to be Annie's going to be an extremely good support. You're able to cast her E. What? I mean, she's been good in quite a bit, just not in pro play, but I think she's going to be an extremely good support now. She's going to be built like tank and stuff because you can put your E on side of a carry now.
Do you know what would cement Perks' legacy as one of the best EU players or West players? Is if he actually did go to Fnatic and he played at mid lane, and then you saw him actually help Fnatic win titles again. He would literally go from his own org he literally loves to playing for the rival org, win titles with them, and then get them back on top. That would be pretty cool. That'd be a storyline I would love to see, but after watching Perks for so long, I just don't see a world where he leaves. I personally think there's a world where just Caps goes to another team. No, I don't think G2's the franchise player. Like G2, so Perks is like the Bjergsen for G2. Perks is also like the Bjergsen for Europe. That's essentially what Perks is. Perks is like the Bjergsen for Europe. Unless Perks retires, like, because even that builds into the aspect as well. When Caps and Perks played against each other, Caps was just better than Perks. And these are a lot of things you got to kind of factor in if you're G2. I'm pretty sure Wonder's staying, Mickey's staying, Yankees is staying. But the issue of Caps and Perks is the problem. You have two people who want to play mid. So I think if you want to do the legacy aspect, you let Perks go to Fnatic, and you keep Perks, and you grab another ADC just for this year, see how it works out. And it's a loan anyway.
I want to point out, like, these are all implications based off your perception of what's actually going on. We don't actually know if Perks is actually striving to be a mid laner right now. I don't think I've ever seen a report on it yet. So this is just, again, this is I think it's probably true, but I don't want to put a fact on this. It's possible they just run back the same roster. I just don't think it will. I don't want it to happen either.
For a third time?
Well, I mean, they made it semifinals and finals, so that's a pretty good showing.
And they did win an international event, so that's something too. Maybe Perks wants to be a support. Oh good lord.
Yeah, he does not have the right to take X-Smithy. I mean,
Mickey
X's spot. I almost called him X-Smithy, then X-Peke. Yeah, Mickey X is, like, so good.
but that's pretty much it. As you guys already know, if you missed this live, don't worry, it's just gonna stay up. Just like the video. That way more people get it recommended in their feed if you watch league content. This man right here, right, oh my god, right here, started his own channel. So I think if you're a mod you can link it, right?
I can.
Yeah, just link it, and then yeah, we're heading out of here. Thank you to everyone who came in and watched. We peaked at like 13 people. That's cool. You know, this is not for people watching it. This is literally for anyone who's just willing to come in and chat. That's pretty much it. There's nothing else. Did we cover everything? Yeah. Nemesis, Alphari, Bjergsen, Worlds. Damn one, hashtag damn one win. They're the best team in the world. They're gonna smack around Sunning. I don't really think it's that close. I mean, it's they're gonna get destroyed, man. It's gonna be embarrassing. Literally, if SOFM do not drag them over the hump if they're doing really bad, I think it's pretty simple. But other than that, yeah. See you guys later. Like, comment, subscribe. Most of all, enjoy. I'm the Nightwing, and that is whatever name or alias he chooses to go by in his daily life. What is your name?
I don't need a superhero name.
What is your name?
Or watch The Community. It's a comedy. Everybody's watched The Community. It's incredible.
What's that?
The Community. It was what's his name was on there. It was God. What was that guy's name?
Ja Rule.
It was not Ja Rule.
See you guys later. Goodbye. I'll see you guys next week on Rift Insight, where we talk about the World's 2020 finals and who won the World Championship. Also, there's going to be more roster rumors anyway. And if you need all those immediately updated, don't worry, because I'll be doing them when they come out for you. So, yeah. See you guys later. Peace. Have a great day.